Abarak. World of stone. World of darkness lit by the fires of molten sea. World of stalagmites and stalactites. World of fire dragons. World of poisonous air and sulphurous fumes. World of magic. Abarak. World of the dead. Zar, Lord of the Nexus and now Lord of Abarak, sat back in his chair, rubbed his eyes. The rune constructs he was studying were starting to blur together. He'd almost made a mistake, and that was inexcusable. But he had caught himself in time, corrected it. Closing his aching eyes, he went over the construct again in his mind. Begin with the heart rune. Connect this sigil stem to an adjoining rune's base. Inscribe the sigla on the breast, working upward to the head. Yes, that was where he'd gone wrong the first few times. The head was important, vital. Then draw the sigla on the trunk, finally the arms, the legs. It was perfect. He could find no flaw. In his mind's eye, he imagined the dead body on which he'd been working rising up and living again. A corrupt form of life, admittedly, but a beneficial one. The corpse was far more useful now than it would have been moldering in the ground. Zar smiled in triumph, but it was a triumph whose lifespan was shorter than that of his imaginary defunct. His thoughts went something like this. I can raise the dead. At least I am fairly certain I can raise the dead. I can't be sure. That was the pall over his elation. There were no dead for him to raise. Or rather, there were too many dead. Just not dead enough. In bitter frustration, Zar slammed his hands down on the elaborately conceived rune construct. The rune bones went flying, skittering and sliding off the table onto the floor. This is a game played on Abarak, similar to an ancient game known on Earth as Mahjong. The playing pieces are inscribed with the sigla used by both patrons and Sartan to work their magic. Fire C, Volume 3 of the Deathgate Cycle. Zar paid no attention to them. He could always put the construct together again and again. He knew it as well as he knew the rune magic to conjure up water, for all the good it would do him. Zar needed a corpse, one not more than 3 days dead, one that hadn't been seized by these wretched Lazars. Irritably, he swept the last few remaining rune bones to the floor. The Sartan inhabiting Abarak learned to practice the forbidden art of necromancy, began giving a dreadful type of life to the corpses of their dead. The dead became slaves, working for the living. If the dead are brought back too soon after death, the soul does not leave the body, but remains tied to it. These Sartan become Lazar, fearful beings who inhabit simultaneously both the plane of the living and the realm of the dead. A Lazar can find no peace, no rest. Its life is constant torment. Fire C, Volume 3 of the Deathgate Cycle. He left the room he used as his study, headed for his private chambers. On his way, he passed by the library, and there was Clytus, the dynast, former ruler, until his death, of Necropolis, the largest city on Abarak. At his death, Clytus had become a Lazar, one of the living dead. Now the dynast's gruesome form, which was neither dead nor alive, wandered the halls and corridors of the palace that had once been his. The Lazar thought it was still his. Zar knew better, but he saw no reason to disabuse Clytus of the notion. The Lord of the Nexus steeled himself to speak to the Lord of the living dead. Zar had fought many terrible foes during his struggles to free his people from the Labyrinth. Dragons, wolfen, snogs, cheodin, every monster the Labyrinth could create. Zar feared nothing living. The Lord couldn't help feeling a qualm deep in his bowels when he looked into the hideous, ever-shifting death mask face of the Lazar. Zar saw the hatred in the eyes, the hatred that the dead bore the living of Abarak. An encounter with Clytus was never pleasant. Zar generally avoided the Lazar. The Lord found it uncomfortable talking to a being who had one thought on his mind: death. Your death.